G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of The Wholesome Heathen. I am Johnny Hellwinter, and tonight we are cooking a personal favourite, paella. So the way we do paella is probably very different from the traditional way that paella is cooked, and we recognise that. This is sort of more a paella-inspired rice, mushroom, capsicum dish. As I said in my last cooking video, we are effectively hobbits, so we put mushrooms in just about everything. But in this paella, we also use capsicum, Spanish onion, a shitload of garlic, and a chorizo sausage. So we sort of have some more traditional elements in there, but we also have some stuff that you wouldn't normally use. We've also got a bunch of canned goods that I'll explain as we go along. But let's get cutting, because that's the first thing we've got to do. As always, cheers. The first thing you got to cut up is your mushrooms. We buy them pre-cut because we're lazy. So that's done. Next thing you want to get stuck into is your chorizo. So basically we just give that a bit of a rough chop, just into little discs or little slices. Righto. Stay put. You might need a second bowl for something. Next up is the capsicum. There are a bunch of ways to cut capsicum. This is just how we do it. Lovely. Alright, so once you've sort of de-seeded it, basically you just want to be cutting the capsicum into strips. Like so. And then we tend to just go in half again. Just going to cut up the onion now. Probably don't need to tell you how to cut up an onion. We tend to do just halves and thirds just because that's what we prefer, but you know, if you prefer it thicker or thinner, whatever floats your boat. It's easy. Cheeky bit of garlic. Alrighty, so again, same as last time, you can use jar garlic. You can mince it, slice it, dice it, however you like it. There's no real exact measurement here either. The recipe that we are basing this off calls for 2 cloves of garlic, but as per usual we've gone way over the limit because we're nuts for garlic, same as we are for mushrooms. So we just basically finished off, you know, like a full head of garlic, like whatever was left on the head of garlic, we just polished off. So yeah, we're going to give that a quick chop and then we'll head over the other side of the kitchen. Righto. Phenomenal. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is get some oil in the pan and heat that up so we can get our chorizo on the go. Let's get started. Chuck them in there. Lovely. Let that work its magic for a little while. Basically, we're just lightly frying them. Obviously, we're, like I explained last week, vegan-ish, so I will have the chorizo in mine, Jess won't have it in hers. So we cook the chorizo first, keep it separate, and then we cook the rest of the dish. So effectively I pan fry the chorizo and then throw it in once the rest of the dish is complete. And even just the heat from the paella itself is enough to sort of like reinvigorate the chorizo. So yeah, safe to just give it a quick little cook off now and then chuck it in a little bowl, keep it separate, and then yeah, add it to the meal later on, if that's what you're planning on doing. Oh yeah. Alright, that'll probably do it for them. So we're just going to grab our little bowl back, fling them back in there. Try not to grab too much, you can give them a little bit of a shake. You don't want to lose too much of that oil. Well, you don't want these to be too greasy, but also want to use that oil to cook the rest of the paella in. Sort of infused with the flavours from the chorizo. And also be very careful not to get any of this boiling oil on yourself like I just did, because it really hurts. Alright, set those aside, literally lick your wounds, have a wine. Phase 2, the aromatics. Bung all your onion and garlic in there. Turn the heat down, doesn't need to be that freaking hot. Considering how hot the pot just got for the chorizo, it's pretty safe to turn it down, just because you don't want these things to burn. And also, they're going to cook throughout the rest of the paella, so yeah, you're not in danger of copping under raw onion. Beautiful. Alright, chuck in your capsicum, roll in there, and your mushies. Truth be told, some of these pre-cut mushrooms are a little bit big. They're a little bit more than a mouthful, so you can just use your spoon to just break them up a little bit. Sort of let that mixture just sort of fry off a bit. And it is really down to personal taste how cooked you like your veggies. I mean, we tend to have ours slightly on the more raw side, like not fully raw, but we do like to have a bit of a crunch. I think that's one of the aspects of capsicum that we enjoy quite a lot, and we use capsicum a lot in our cooking. So yeah, entirely up to you how long you let it sit there for, but I wouldn't go on too much longer because it is going to continue cooking as we go through the rice and the rest of the process. Alright. open these up. Right, so what we're looking at here, we've got diced tomatoes, we've got corn kernels, which we'll strain and chuck them in. And the same goes for the bean mix. You can basically use any kind of beans that you like. We like this Mexican mix, or like any sort of 4-bean mix, anything that gives you a bit of variety. I haven't seen like a bunch of paella that actually has beans and corn in it. I don't know how traditional it is or how untraditional it is, but at the same time, you know, we don't need to put any of the seafood elements in it, so we sort of substitute with our own little, you know, veggie substitute. So that's what we do, and we like it, and it works for us. Chuck those in there. Give it a good old stir. You cheeky bugger. Right, now for the critical moment. The actual flavour of the paella, where it comes from. Paprika. Again, the recipe that we use that I'll post up later calls for 2 teaspoons, but you can afford to be as liberal as you like. I mean, don't go absolutely crazy, but you know, when they say 2 teaspoons, they can be big teaspoons. Oh yeah. Just give that a quick little stir in. That really is the essence of this meal, is that smoked paprika. You don't have to use smoked paprika, you can use regular paprika, but we prefer the smoked stuff. It just adds a, you know, another dynamic to the whole thing. Oh yeah, you can smell that waft. Incredible. Right. Next thing we're gonna do is add the tomatoes. Get in there. And then the rice. Now, again, the recipe calls for 1.5 cups of rice, but we're cooking for 2, and we generally put it out to, you know, 1 cup per person. So we're going to use 2 cups and just go from there. Plus, it gives you heaps of leftovers, which is grouse. Stir around. And it's time for the chicken stock. Again, cubes, powder, your own brew, whatever suits you. But effectively the rule is 2 cups of water or stock to 1 cup of rice. So we're going to do, which works out quite well for us with the powder, because 1 teaspoon of this makes 4 cups. So yeah, we're chucking a pretty liberal teaspoon of the old chicken stock. We fetch ourselves 4 cups of water. Give that all a bloody good stir. The last thing we want is stuff sticking to the bottom. Not that it should with the amount of oil that we were starting with. If something's sticking to the bottom, it's gone horribly wrong. So we want to bring that to a simmer.
She's probably going to mean turning the heat up just a little bit on it so we can get some action happening.
Once you start getting a bit of movement on the surface, that's when you know we're sort of getting to where we want it to be in regards to the heat. You can probably even turn it down a little bit because that means that it's going to continue to, you don't want to boil it effectively, you do want it to simmer. And depending on the density of the ingredients that you've chucked in there, the original recipe said 12 to 15 minutes on simmer. For us, we found it tends to go a little bit longer just because we do use more rice, the beans and the corn, just things that just add density to the entire meal tend to obviously increase the cooking time. So we'll leave it for a little bit longer. We'll check back in on this in about 15 just to see how it's going. But this is where you want it to be when you leave it. Alrighty, so this is starting to look pretty good. Most of the liquid has boiled off and the rice is starting to look like the predominant feature of the meal. We'll give her a little taste test. Because really, everything else, it doesn't matter, but if the rice isn't cooked, that's when you're knackered. Okay. We'll let it go a little bit longer, but it is good to check in periodically with your rice because you don't want to undercook it, but you certainly don't want to overcook it either. So we'll give that another 5 minutes, as I suspected, and we'll come back to it. Yeah, that's good. I think stuck to the bottom. That's what we like. Time for another test of that rice. It's looking softer. Perfection. So we'll take that off the heat. Grab ourselves something to serve with. And we're off to the races. Now's the time to just sprinkle in a bit of that chorizo. You don't want to use all of it. Having a whole bloody stick of chorizo to yourself seems like a bit much. If both of you were eating the chorizo, it'd make sense. But as it is, we just keep half of it aside, and when we have the leftovers tomorrow, I'll just chuck in the rest of the chorizo. Easy as that. Alright, let's do it. Alright, so like I said in my last video, I'm trying to do a shout out every episode. And I was sort of struggling to think of who to do because I'm trying to keep it relevant to the content of the video to a certain extent. And I realized someone that deserves a shout out is my best friend and my brother, Adam Chapman, from Hybrid Nightmares. He's the drummer in Hybrid Nightmares. We started the band together, we toured the world together, and now he is the owner and proprietor of AC Drums. I couldn't be more proud of him, but the reason why I want to shout him out is because we were talking earlier today about going to Japan. And the first time we went to Japan, we were both born and raised in the outer east of Melbourne in very, very white suburbs, in white neighborhoods around other white people. So we had a very, well, what you might call like a culturally limited experience growing up. And we brought that into our young adulthood. And so when it was time for us to start, leaving the nest, so to speak, both of us were quite concerned with how we were going to deal with the culture shock and, what we were going to eat, how we were going to behave, all the rest of that when we got over there. And when we got to Japan, we realized there was nothing to be afraid of. And everything was wonderful, and both of us have discovered foods and fashion and games and just cultural items that we absolutely adore and that we brought home with us and we still have a love for. And I want to shout him out because I'm so incredibly proud of him for the growth that I've seen in him over the last few years. He has gone from sort of a young man who was only capable of living within the existence that he knew to being a 30-year-old man who owns his own business, who teaches young people an incredible skill, and he teaches young people an art, and at the same time has grown and evolved, and his tastes have evolved, and he's open to experimenting to new things. And when I thought of cooking this paella dish, I couldn't help but think, this is exactly the meal that I want to cook for him when we're allowed to see each other again after this lockdown is finished. The first time that he can come to our house after this lockdown is finished, I'm going to cook a massive batch of this and sit him down and watch as he experiences these new flavors and these new dynamics. And I cannot wait to share that experience with him. I love him so much and I'm so excited for that. So Adam, this is for you. This video is for you. I hope you enjoy it, I hope you love it, and I hope you know how much I love you. As if you didn't think I was wearing the shirt that I posted about the other day. And that's what I reckon. Check it out.